Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Certified Forgotten. We are, no matter what's going on in the world, your horror podcast for films with 10 or fewer reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. We typically try to stick to an either or schedule, which means every other week we're going to do a full hour episode with an awesome guest. Last week's full hour episode, an awesome guest was Tori Potenza, who talked about The Cremator, one of our better conversations in a hot minute. You should absolutely go check that out if you haven't. But this week, we're going to do a 30-minute episode. It's going to be just myself and my buddy and co-founder Matt Donato, and we're going to talk about a movie that is now available. It's in that liminal stage. It's not streaming, but it's now available on video on demand and will be streaming soon. But before we get to that, a quick check-in. Donato, how are you doing this fine afternoon?
To check in, yeah. We all need those check-ins these days. I'm fine. I am prepping for South by, so that has become the new obsession where I don't know, I feel like on the podcast it was like, oh, I'm coming down from Sundance, and now it's like, oh, I'm prepping for South by, and I would like to just not prep for something for a little bit.
How many, before, little sidebar conversation, how many movies do you try and pre-watch before a festival? You can give it a rough percentage. You sit down for something like South by, you see 30% of the movies beforehand, 70% of the movies on site. What's that breakdown look like for you?
I mean, it's really like whatever I can do. The more I can do before I get there, the better I feel. And especially for maybe some of like the later screenings, like if I can knock out some 10 o'clocks, because bless South by and changing their midnighter lineup. They don't actually do midnighters at midnight anymore. If you don't know about South by Southwest, they actually start them around 10 o'clock. So midnighters are like kind of ending around 12 for a film critic, which is awesome because I get to go home right and not be completely depleted and like up until 4 a.m. But no, I'm trying to do in the best of times when I had less responsibilities and I could focus more on pre-work. I was getting 5 to 6 reviews done before I even got to Austin, Texas, or whatever festival it was. So like that's the dream, to like have that settled so you can take some screenings off your schedule and actually fit in. Hey, you're with a bunch of your friends in a different city, like go out, do something, have fun. I can't stress enough, like, the enjoyment of these festivals is doing the work. Don't get me wrong. I love going through the process of, well, I should going through the chaos is more what it sounds like. But yeah, seeing as many movies as I can, getting as many reviews as I can, making the trip worthwhile professionally, but enjoy yourself. I don't know if you're a critic listening to this and you're getting into the festival biz, like just make sure that you make the most of your opportunity everywhere you can. Don't leave some personal pleasure on the table there. It's fun. Go explore. You're somewhere different, and also like make friends. We're not all bad, well, make friends with the good critics, I guess I should say.
Well, make friends, and a word of advice: all of the things that you want to do, whether it's apply for a full-time job, write a booklet, do a podcast appearance, do a commentary track, all of that happens because you know somebody. There are 1,000 people fighting for a handful of slots, and it's the relationships that you build with editors that pay off a little bit down the line. So if you need justification to go out an evening and not just watch movies 24/7, call it networking. Go network with some writers, go network with some editors, because eventually, if you are a decent person and you do the work decently, those relationships will pay off for you a little bit down the line.
Yeah, I really can't stress that. That is one of my big pieces of advice, I guess I would call it, because they're expensive. Going to a festival as a freelancer sucks. You got to put up all the money yourself and hope you make it back, or make a little money on top if you're lucky. That's getting harder and harder by the day because budgets are being slashed at every outlet that I know of under the sun. But you are correct, Mr. Monagle. I can't tell you how many times that a festival relationship or a festival, even just networking opportunity, led to work down the line. It's the best place to do it. So it's a privilege. I say that as someone with a day job who has the income to put up front and then make back and get paid back later as a freelancer. So, I am coming from a place where I understand my situation and I can make the most of it. I've been doing it for a decade, but, I was doing it for quite a while and not making anything. That was really what was keeping me going. It was the idea that I could see people. It was the idea that I knew I was putting my name out there and getting out there in the right way. And again, like making relationships is important in any industry, and it's making the right relationships and doing it the right way too. Like, become friends with people first. Don't just be so see-through and stuff like that. So that's my little spiel for today if you're an up and coming critic.
There you go. Words of wisdom from Matt Donato. Don't just watch movies, but if you do go to festivals and you do watch movies, you might end up seeing something like today's film, which I believe got its world premiere at last year's Fantastic Fest. Am I remembering that correctly?
Correct. It was closing night.
Oh, that's right. That's right. The film, of course, is Whistle, and it is now available. Soon it'll be available, I believe, on Shudder as a straight streamer, but we're in that intermediary period where you can see it on VOD if you want. And we did not get a chance to talk about it during its very brief theatrical run, so we thought we'd talk about it today. If you haven't seen it, a very quick plot synopsis. After the tragic loss of her father, Chris wants nothing more than to keep her head down and slip into the anonymity of her new school. But an unfortunate locker assignment puts her on the radar of the star of the basketball team and is the reluctant owner of an Olmec death whistle, a wood instrument that allegedly has the power to summon the dead or even death itself. Now, Chris and her new situationship, Ellie, must figure out how to defeat an ancient curse or become victim to death. Directed by Corin Hardy, Donato favorite Corin Hardy, Whistle can be described as smile by way of 2000s studio horror. Donato, did you watch this at Fantastic Fest?
I did indeed. That is where I saw it. I was, the crowd helped for this one, I think, a lot. It did well closing night. It was the right kind of movie to bring us out of a festival that had actually a lot of good time horror, I would say. There were some fantastic fests. You might have even been there for some of them because it was a little while ago where now, now Oscar nominated Joachim Trier is releasing Thelma. And that's like a 2.5 hour dramatic horror movie. And it was sandwiched between other 2.5 hour dramatic horror movies. So I just had this day full of dark and dour and slow burn horror. And it felt like that was that whole year. So Fantastic Fest has had its time in the muck, but I feel like last year was a fun year. There's a lot of upbeat horror, and Whistle absolutely fit that for me. It is a slasher in the Final Destination realm, I would call it. It is very much a you cannot escape death. It's coming for you. You just do your best, hope to roll the dice, get lucky, but you're probably not gonna. And in playing in that mold, I think it's pretty nifty. The death whistle, great little toy there. Perry Nemiroff has one sitting on her shelf that I refuse to let her blow in my presence.
That's fun.
But its simplicity works, I think, here because Whistle is pretty straightforward. Corin Hardy knows what he wants to do. He wants to get some really nifty death scenes in. He wants to tell a story about kids, finding the importance of life while being surrounded by death. I think there's a hopeful message in there. And he wants to do like YA horror the right way because this does feel like a teenage slasher, like you said, very mid 2000s, made for the sleepover crowd. And in that vein, I think my favorite part of it is it treats the audience that it is intending itself for with the utmost respect as horror fans. It's not skimping on anything. It's not. I use Tarot as the kind of recent example of this, where they churn out a PG-13 horror movie meant for kids. It is neutered as hell. It cuts away from it. Like, that it is a studio produced mass marketable horror movie for kids. This is and isn't that, because holy shit, these deaths go really hard, like really hard.
Now, remind me, I joked about it during the synopsis, but you are one of the big the Hallow fans. Is that correct? Is that one of the
no, I am.
You stand for?
Very pro Corin Hardy. You are correct in that assessment.
Yeah, and I think that this is a fun example. I think you put it really well, that it's a fun example of why horror that doesn't pull its punches. I think that's definitely what it is. And, we've had Adam Caesar on the podcast before, the author of Clown in a Cornfield. I really love Adam's books. And I think part of why, they are YA books, they're not, I'm not nominally part of the audience for them. But part of the reason why I like them and why I think Adam is such a fun writer is because he understands how to write for a YA audience without pulling punches. Big, gruesome deaths. If you are 16, 17 years old, you are ingesting stuff that is so much darker than anything that would play in a movie theater, right? Like especially if you're growing up in the internet generation. So there's a lot of room and capacity for folks to be able to do that. And I think this movie ended up winning me over a little bit because it opens and it talks about themes of self-harm, and Daphne Keene is playing a primary character who has some tragic thing in their past. There's a grief and a trauma thing, and it's looming in the background, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a YA smile, which doesn't sound like a ton of fun. But yes, there is some of that, and yes, they try and do a little bit with family trauma and history. But I do think that the Final Destination comparison is pretty apt because especially in the final third, once the ball gets rolling, a lot of the stuff that they set up, they kind of abandon. And in some films, that's really annoying, right? The cultural specificity of the Aztec death whistle, they do all of this research into the culture in the first 20 minutes of the movie, and then like doesn't matter at all. Never comes back to it. They don't really care. This could have been, the Jersey Devil tube or whatever. It truly doesn't matter, and that's okay because once the film sort of gets into its final form, it really is about gratuitous and splashy deaths, and it does it in a way that doesn't feel mean too, which is always, as longtime listeners know, I have a very high sensitivity towards films that are mean to their characters. The punishment fits the crime in most cases for most of these characters throughout the film.
Yeah, I was reading my review back and I described the characters as kind of like John Hughesy because I think there is
Mhm.
a rigidity to these stereotypes that Whistle uses. Corin Hardy is in many interviews saying he is playing from the playbook of like A Nightmare on Elm Street and the classic teen slashers that he loved and he wanted to kind of pay respect to. So, this is his kind of Woodsboro-y kind of revamp in his words. But I think it is a little slacking in those details. Everything does feel kind of just cookie cutter of the subgenre, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think it's what holds back certain elements. But
Yeah.
like you said, I think there is a lot to mine here about not just escaping death, but valuing life and the way that the film pushes that second part. And it's not just kids screaming and running and trying to hide. I think that's where it actually becomes a better movie. I also think the Final Destination aspect of death coming does get its own nifty trick, let's say, because when characters die, it is the death that they would have died from in
That's clever.
reality.
Yep.
So basically, when you blow the whistle, you are just calling your death in immediacy versus what would have happened. So whether you're a smoker and your lung cancer comes for you in rapid speed, or you're a drunk who is going to die in a car crash sooner than later, and well, the car crash comes to your bedroom. Holy shit! I think I'm not even going to hide it. The death of the car crash reenactment in a bedroom is going to be in my top 3 if I am lucky enough to write another kill list for Fango this year. I already have in my head where that's going to place. Um, Scream 7's quality and bullshit aside, there's a kill in there that I know will be in my kill list if it's there. But I am so impressed by Whistle knows it has to use some digital for the
Mhm.
effects, and it does. But the blend with practical and what they're able to achieve, the midair car crash without any vehicles is an achievement. I think some people I saw complaining about it just being digital, but you know me. I'll be the first one to say that blood looks bullshit. The pixels look shiny.
Yeah.
XYZ. I didn't get that here. I think the digital is polished, and when it has to be used, it's done the right way.
Yeah. And it's they cut the right corners too. And by cutting the right corners, I mean you can get away with a lot of unpaid off or mediocre storytelling if you have the right cast. And I part of the throwback, of course, to like classic slashers and teen slashers, YA adjacent kind of stuff in particular, is we have fond memories of a lot of those actors. Whether they go on to be big stars or not, those characters and who they inhabit, they feel like real people, or they feel like the characters that they're playing. And I think that one of the secret strengths of Whistle is that it knows how to let its cast basically create people we give a shit about without necessarily earning it. And I think that's great. Like, I think more horror movies should do that. I think if you put the right people in your roles and you just are fucking likable, you don't need to like build a tragic backstory or like a comprehensive character arc, right? If Daphne Keene, who has been wildly underutilized since Logan and is a lot of fun in this film, but more importantly, you have Sophie Nélisse, who is having a huge breakout moment. She was in Yellow Jackets. She should have broken out for that. She's breaking out because she's in Heated Rivalry and is actually really, really good in Heated Rivalry as well. It's one of those things where they basically let a young cast of and then I gotta say Sky Yang, who plays Daphne King, Chris's cousin, who is great. Like that, watching him in the film for me was one of those like, oh, this guy's gonna be something someday. Like this is the lead in a television show, like an actor of repute. He's extremely fucking good. Sky Yang is. And I think a lot happens about 2/3 of the way for the movie for me. And part of what really happened is I was like, I like these actors and I kind of don't care what their arcs are. Like, are they going to pay off everything with Chris about her father and her love of her father's music? And I was like, it doesn't really matter. I know that I like these actors. I like seeing them on screen. I like watching them play off of each other in scenes. That's enough for me. And so those shortcuts that you can get to if you have enough confidence in your cast allow you to do things like move through plot at a rapid pace and get to a bedroom car crash, and it feels like it matters whether or not you've earned it narratively because you've got a good cast dying badly. And that's what horror should be, is like people we like dying badly, and that being fun because it's not mean. That's all I want out of life. I want good actors dying badly, and for me to be like, damn it, oh well, on to the next.
Yeah, I think Sky Yang's performance is a good one to call out because the people who we know are good. And what you
Yep.
said, Keen, Elise, like they're all on point, and they have a lot of chemistry too as they go through the film and explore not only friends surviving but building relationships and all that stuff. There's a lot of teenage angst that turns into kind of teenage euphoria in a way, and I like that element. But Sky Yang is playing the stereotypical horror dork. He
Yes.
reads comics. He's awkward in person. He dresses as the Crow for a Halloween harvest festival, but
Not the Crow. For legal reasons, not the Crow. It's like the his comic book superhero character that he loves that definitely wink wink isn't the Crow.
right. My
Yeah.
bad. Don't sue us either. But for the purpose of the movie, though, it's a character that we've seen over and over again. The tropes are there. Everything is there. But when you have someone like Sky Yang who embodies the role and just brings it to life instead of like getting stuck in those cookie cutter, I guess to say, getting stuck in the frame, that's what makes a better movie. I think horror so many times, is familiar. Every horror movie we see, is it a slasher? Is it a possession film? Is it a haunted house? There's not many ways that a horror movie can go. Werewolves,
Yep.
vampires, you can count them on two hands most likely. But when that familiarity becomes unique and you start really taking the details and making the story your own, I think that's what Whistle does at its best. It is comfort horror. It is the stuff we've seen over and over again, but it is repackaged in a way that like I would continue watching this franchise. I would be happy to watch a whole nother go around with the Whistle, because the same reason we watch Saw, the same reason we watch Paranormal Activity, the same reason we watch any franchise horror movie that knows something works and it keeps bringing it back to give us more. I think Whistle has a little bit of that spark, because I would continue to watch how people were going to die
Mm-hmm.
and how that goes now when it is sped up by the Whistle. It's the ingenuity of pulling off those kind of deaths outside of the means that they need to happen. That is really intriguing to me.
Yeah.
Like I think that's something that you have a good idea when we're talking about franchise potential. I mean that's pretty
Yep.
obvious. Like and we don't do that very often. How many horror movies really need that sequel? How many horror movies
Correct.
need 7 sequels, 8, 9? There's a reason that so few franchises go that long.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Smile 2 on the podcast when it came out last year, or whenever it came out, 2 years ago. Who knows what time it is? And I think that's an example of something where I didn't know it needed a sequel, but I found a really cool, fun way to tell the story. And I think you're playing with that kind of a general conceit in this film, where the premise is enough for you to do it a couple of different times and probably do it a couple of different ways. And I think part of what I like about it, I've going to continue my one-sided, completely unknown feud that I have with Danny and Michael Filippo, that they don't care. They don't know about me. They don't care at all. But I'm the only person in the world that doesn't like their fucking movies. And I think part of it is because it doesn't give you permission to have fun with the film. It's a bad time. But it's trying to barter in this sort of spectacle that we expect from like a Final Destination, like the theatricality of the kills. It wants to have it both ways. It wants it to be a bad time, but it also wants you to be like, look at what we were able to do. That's something that I think Whistle does really well. Again, especially towards the final part of the film. We've talked on previous episodes before about how we appreciate the fact that there are some films that have come out that the monster is just the monster again. It's not an allegory for anything. It's just like a creature. I don't remember specifically the episodes, but I know that we tend to celebrate and gravitate towards films where like, oh, the monster is it is just like an underwater creature or a demon or something. It doesn't represent anything. It's just a folklore monster come to life. And I think that that's really what I like about Whistles. It gives you permission to have fun with it, because at the end of the day, death called by a whistle isn't an allegory for anything. It isn't trying to be a heavy-handed metaphor. It isn't trying to, especially when you've got like bodies fountaining blood in empty car parks. The film is basically just like, it's cool. You can have fun with this. You can have a good time. We're having fun with this. You should have fun with it too. And that's a side of horror that I want to see more of. Like, again, a broken record, but I want there to be an element of fun to horror. And for the type of stuff that plays, these wide release theater things these days, I don't know. I just feel like a lot of horror filmmakers aren't interested in having fun with the genre in the way that Corin Hardy clearly is.
And he's having fun in a small package, which I also respect, because this movie is 84 minutes. This movie is
Yes.
not going to waste your time.
Yes.
We're not going to drag things out. And I say that with a little bit of apprehension, because if there was more time taken for a few story elements,
Sure.
it might be a tighter film. I will admit that. I think, again, I'll bring up the fact that it is playing so much in the sandbox that many have played before, and sometimes it really does feel like we're just using somebody else's toys, and that's just going to happen. It's fine.
Yeah.
And a longer film would have given, let's say it is Sky's character having a crush on the hot girl, and that relationship playing out exactly as you expected it would in a lot of tropey ways, again, let's say, without like spoiling too much. But it kind of just happens really quickly. There's not much magic to it. There's not much belief in it. It just plays out. So I think those kind of moments are where Hardy does suffer a little bit as a director. It's clear that he knows how to make a horror movie, and it's clear I like The Nun. So I think he's got a great command of tone and style and all of those things. What I did lack was, you're making a YA horror movie and the YA aspects feel a little underbaked. They feel like just part of it. But going back to what you said about having fun and going back to this being an 8, like this is that kind of perfect line of popcorn entertainment where you don't got to give your night away. You don't have to worry about there being much drag, because the film itself has to get things done pretty damn quickly. So
Yeah.
whether that's good for you or not, you're at least signing up for something that isn't going to waste your time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's a film that if it was better, it could be worse. You know what I mean? Like if it was reaching for some of those serious character beats that would make it, a contender for best horror movies of the year. I just don't think you're not that guy. Like I don't feel like the film has this in it. So it's it's the rare film where I think, because it is limited and limits itself and really focuses on kind of its core strengths and what it can do well. I think in some ways the fact that it's not like great allows it to be more comfortably good than if it had decided to be, the next A24 whatever. And it could have been like, I think that there's enough of a premise here, and it's got enough of a high concept for it to work that way. And I don't know, we need more B movies in the world. I know you'll agree with me on that too. Like, we need more programmers. We need more films that are primate. Great example from this year, 2026. We need more movies where people are just like, I got a cool idea. How about a death whistle? I got a cool idea. How about a killer monkey? And we do it, and it's under 90 minutes. And a bunch of young actors who are going to go on to do good things, get one of their first roles, and they're good, and it's fun, and we talk about it, and people revisit it because they had fun with it. And it isn't in, it's not the best horror movie of the year, but it makes enough money for everybody to walk away. Like, that's success. That's success. Everything doesn't need to be, $1 billion at the box office. Not everything needs to be a 5-star review. There's a million movies. This is going to be somebody's favorite film. Someone in the world will go through the rest of their life saying that Whistle is their favorite film. It's not going to be you or me, but it takes all kinds. And it makes me happy to see a B movie that is, and apologies to Corin Hardy and the rest if they're like, we were really trying to make it great, but like a B movie that is comfortable in its own skin, and again is set with the notion of entertaining. God, I would trade 100 awards bait films. I would trade 100 A24 or Annapurna releases for this. Like, give me a solid foundation of these, and I'm gonna have a good year at the movies.
Yeah, I would almost say I don't want the A24 version of this. I don't
Yeah.
need the longer take of Whistle. As much as I said it might benefit from some of those
Yes.
elements, going to the A24, well, this isn't for them. I like a studio like Shudder being behind a movie like Whistle or Clown in a Cornfield, and understanding that sometimes we can just have fun because A24 for everything that they do. And trust me, I love some of their movies. I also think that they struggle to make the certain type of fun slasher outside of a few
Yeah.
that might still exist in their catalog, which of course they're always will. There are outliers to every rule, but like you said, Whistle A24, and I'm kind of like, nah, no,
Yeah.
we don't need that. I think it had the right home.
Yeah. And I will be perfectly honest, a lot of this is seasonal too. We talk about how certain horror films come out during time periods and either embrace it or run counter to it. And because of that, they're either accepted or rejected and they get rediscovered. That's the whole purpose. One of the whole purposes of Certified Forgotten is this idea that there are so many horror movies that come out during any given time period, any decade, or any run of films, that it's really hard for us to know which of the good ones are. A million zombie movies, and probably a bunch of them that are nowhere near the top of the list are going to be the ones that our metaphorical children are like, that was the best zombie movie of the 2010s, that we're not thinking about today. That's part of the fun of it. But we can't always be playing the archivist. We can't always be playing the person whose job it is to think about what films are going to be the next canon in 20 years. I'm fucking tired. World fucking sucks. I want to see a movie where somebody pops because they blew an Aztec whistle. I don't need all of my entertainment all the time to be a life lesson. I again, to go back to the B movie idea, I can appreciate some of this. So I always say that in order to be great, movies have to risk being bad to some people, to a lot of people. But I think the flip side of that is that not all movies that not every movie that reaches for greatness can avoid being bad. I think that sometimes the more you do, the less you end up with. And this is a comfortable little horror film. Had a great time with it. I think most of you listening probably would too. That's it. It's our conversation about Whistle. Now available on video on demand, will be available on Shudder soon. Should probably look up that date, but I don't want to. So you can look it up on your own. You have agency. Don't ask ChatGPT. Google it. Look at the Wikipedia page. Donato, you are headed to South by Southwest. You've got a lot going on your radar in the near future. Where do folks stay connected with you online?
As always, at Donatobomb, DonAtobomb, and that is Blue Sky, Letterboxd, and Instagram.
As for me, you can find me just on Blue Sky. It's monogold.bsky.social. You can follow Certified Forgotten, though, in a lot of places. We're on Instagram, we're on Blue Sky, we're on Facebook. Just recently started a Threads account because it seems like some people are on Threads and it costs us nothing. So, hey, fuck it. We'll take the clicks if you'll give them to us. But most importantly, you should go to certifiedforgotten.com/newsletter. Sign up for our weekly newsletter. It goes out on Fridays. You'll get free commentary from myself or Mr. Donato on the state of horror, as well as some of our favorite pieces and shout outs of what's going on in the horror community around us, which typically means we're praising whatever horror list Megan Navarro just wrote for Bloody Disgusting, but there's other stuff that we typically shout out too. So that is it. I wish you nothing but the best in navigating this world. And if you find yourself holding a death whistle, please don't blow it.